Welcome back to another episode of the Provider's Playbook. Join us today to find out how NDIS participants are gaining meaningful skills through art programs, how colour is manipulating us, and finally, what is the psychology behind colour? How are we being manipulated? We are joined by Jess from Ink and Intuition. Jess, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Woohoo! I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear all about you. I haven't asked you while we've been sitting here for the last 10 minutes because I wanted to save all my surprise for the end, but I've picked up a little bit of what you do.
Okay.
But you guys know each other, right?
I do. I know
Okay.
Jess. I've known Jess for ages. She was at when my parents renewed their vows.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather's 60th birthday or something.
Yeah.
And then, that was during high school. And then we didn't really talk and she saw one of my TikTok reels and was like, I know you. And I was like, I know you. We were really close family friends back in the day. And now she does some really cool stuff in the space and
Yeah,
so.
wicked.
And lives 3 streets from me too.
I know. She's like, oh, I just live at the next direct roundabout. I was like, it's not weird at all.
Yeah. Wild.
You could have carpooled here.
I was thinking that on the way here. I was like,
Yeah. Excellent. Cool.
All right.
So normally what we do is, to get to know you a little bit, is we start with a game, right? So the audience can get to know you, and we don't pre-let you know. I don't even know what the game is. So sometimes they're good, sometimes they're shit. But
okay.
It's because, no, whatever. Okay, I'm not going to have that argument. But I'm just going to start with, just to warm myself up for the day, I'm just going to start with Would You Rather. Okay? Now, just
I haven't done this game before.
Take no notice of him. Okay, so we're going to start with Would You Rather. So do you know how to play that game?
I believe so.
Okay, cool. So basically,
Pretty self-explanatory.
Are you right?
I'm good.
So we give you 2 options and you have to pick one.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So we'll start with an easy one. Would you rather have the ability to fly or be invincible?
The ability to fly.
Invincible.
I'm going to go with invincible too.
Really?
Or actually...
Because then if you tried to fly and got it wrong, you wouldn't die, so...
No. I'm gonna go with you. Can you take people on the... There's so many questions I have here. But, I reckon if you could fly, imagine you could see the whole world.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's would you rather if there was this parameter around it and...
Okay. All right, cool. Would you rather never use social media again or never watch another movie or TV show?
B.
Never use social media again or never watch movies again?
Yeah, or a TV show.
Or a TV
TV's
show
out.
again?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I think I would never use social media again.
Okay.
Really?
Oh, that's a really hard one. That's 50-50. But yeah,
No, you
I stand
can't.
by my answer.
Okay, your TV.
I didn't even need to hear B. I would sack B.
You're
Whatever
you're
B
I
is.
need social media in my life.
Yeah.
I'm like a full social media
I feel
junkie.
like the only time I ever watch TV is 10:30 at night when I get into bed. And I can never actually watch TV shows that are dense and require full attention. It needs to be something like Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I watch it to be watch it where I don't have to pay attention. There's no episode story arcs where I can just, fall asleep and it's switch off. So I could definitely do without that, but I'm so involved and engaged with social media that just...
See, it's opposite for me. Social media feels chaotic. It feels unpredictable. It feels fast-paced. And I definitely like to go on social media to kind of just see what's going on in the world. Yeah, doom scrolling, collect some data and research. I definitely use it for that as well. And then movies and TV, I really like the really intentional artistic storytelling. Wow. Sit down with that story, ask myself questions and reflections. Oh, what did I learn about myself in that? So I couldn't give that up.
Isn't it crazy how different humans are?
Yeah.
That just blows my mind because I'm a bit like Chris. I've got the attention span of a goldfish and it's literally 3 seconds. I'm like, ooh, shiny thing, So I can't sit and watch TV either. So typically of an evening, my partner, he loves TV. He'll watch that footy show where those 4 men argue for an hour and a half, every single night. And I'm just like, I'm like, why could you never get bored of just a bunch of old white men arguing? It's
You know what's so funny is that our audience listen to us for hours argue. So you've just offended everyone that listens to us. How can you people sit there and listen to us argue?
No, but I don't think we
It's
argue.
because we're not old white men, is that?
Correct. No.
Right.
No, I think it's because they literally, I don't think, they argue for like the whole hour and a half. So typically of a night, we're much more fun than them, FYI. No, we're not.
No, I don't know what the show is.
Oh, okay. So typically of a night, like, I'll either be playing with the kids or he will watch the TV show and I will just do work, But recently I had social media suspended, so all my social media has gone down, and whilst I'm desperate to get it back for business purposes, I've actually found it really nice to not have social media, and also I've actually realised that how many times a day I go to Instagram just to fill in a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, and I was like, not that I was relying on it, but it was like, why do I care so much about what's going on in other people's lives?
Well, you know what? This is the two things. The first thing with that, to fill in the minute, that's why people think that giving up smoking is so hard, because you don't, you've got the hand-to-mouth motion and stuff like that. It's the fact that you use it as a time stopgap. So you go, great, I've got 6 minutes. It breaks up the day and they said they're going to be here in 5 minutes, time for a cigarette. It's that little quick time filler, the same as Instagram, which is why you have the same addiction level to Instagram.
Wow, there you go.
Yep.
Well,
I
there you
forgot
go.
what my second thing was, but...
Okay, cool. Okay, would you rather have unlimited money or unlimited time?
A. Oh, B.
Oh, unlimited time. Oh. Yeah, I agree. Unlimited time. I feel like I never have enough time. And there's so much that I could be doing in that time.
Yeah, because you can make money, you can't make time.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, all right, I'm going to go with time too.
Okay.
Okay, would you rather be able to talk to animals or speak every human language?
This is
I'm going to
so
do every
hard.
language. I don't want to
every
speak to
language.
animals.
Every language?
Yeah, there's no reason for me to talk to animals.
I can already understand my dog. She likes two things: smackos and barking at the mailman. That's all she would. If she could talk, all she would do is sit there and go, "Did you see that prick this morning putting letters in the mailbox?" Yes, Coco. See him every day. If he's back tomorrow, gonna yell at him again.
But the wisdom we could get from animals. Imagine being able to talk to all animals and what they're seeing and how they're perceiving the world. I feel like because I'm an art therapist,
Yes.
I feel like I am tapping into and exploring different forms of communication anyway. So I feel pretty confident in that. So to have animals be able to share in the wisdom, that's my answer.
Animals. I'm just now thinking of the conversation.
What value could a horse give me?
Oh my gosh, have you not heard of equine therapy?
I have, but I'm saying, what communication? That horse going, I was eating a lot of hay before. Fantastic.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go every language.
Yeah.
And then once I'm flying around the world, visiting all my countries. And
With all that time you've got.
With all the time I've got. So true. All right, one more and we're going to crack on. All right. Would you rather explore space or the deepest parts of the ocean?
Deepest parts of the ocean.
Space.
Really? We've been opposite this whole time. I like it. Dynamic.
Yeah.
Ocean. I want to know what's here, what's underneath. I don't know. Something about being in space feels overwhelming for me. And what I know about the ocean is, what we know about the ocean is that, it starts and it ends somewhere.
Yeah.
Whereas the galaxy, we don't know. So that feels very overwhelming to me.
Yeah,
to even
I'm going
consider.
to Mars.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That could be possible for you.
Rachel Musk.
Don't dare me, All right, that was fun. What I have learned from that exercise is you're a very deep thinker.
Yeah, look. Artists tend to be.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, let's crack on getting a little bit to know about you then, because you sound very intriguing for me. Oh. Maybe because you just feel so different to me. So what do you do? Let's start there. Who are you? What do you do?
So I'm Jess, human to human. I am a 30-something-year-old woman who is a twin, who is a wife, a daughter, a friend, an animal lover. But I'm also an art psychotherapist. So that means that I work with people with lived experience of mental health and illness at all different spectrums. And psychotherapy is about relationships with self, relationship with others, the world, and how mental health impacts our ability to engage in all of those things. Art therapy is also about using creative expression. So there's no need to be verbal in that space. And art therapy acknowledges that there are many ways of communicating and tapping into emotions and sharing those emotions and healing and recovery and repair. We can do that in so many different dynamic ways outside of just sitting on a couch and verbally chatting.
Wow. So you do therapy with others? One-on-one or in group settings or both?
Both. So I do one-to-one, usually in people's homes. I do lots of home visits, especially in the NDIS world. And then I do groups and training. I do a lot of training in services.
So you work specifically with people with psychosocial needs?
Yeah.
Additional needs? Okay, all right. And so what does therapy, excuse the ignorance here, but like what does therapy then look like for you if it's not verbal?
Yeah, so when you're entering my art therapy space, or I'm entering your space, you're usually going to be met with a beautiful, colourful array of art materials. I will tell you, you don't have to give me eye contact. You don't have to verbally talk to me. What I do invite you to do is explore and play and express, and I will be observing what you're leaning towards and what you're repelling from. So before the podcast started, we were talking a little bit about sensory experience and what we lean towards and what we repel from. That is how, as humans, we develop authenticity. That's how we develop our personality, our responses to the world. So I work with that. You don't have to make art if you don't want to. We can write poetry, we can listen to music, we can move our bodies. It's just about being with our emotions in meaningful, expressive ways.
Wow, that's incredible. And so my first question that comes to mind is, what happens when someone repels from the color black?
Whoa,
what does that mean?
Oh, okay. So I think that's something that I get asked a lot as an art therapist, like, what does my artwork mean? And while early stages of art therapy in the mental health world was about kind of interpreting someone's work, for me it's not. It's about saying, I noticed you pulled away when you saw the color black. If you feel comfortable to share that with me.
So it's analysing the process rather than the finished product.
Exactly.
Wow.
Tell me, what does this mean to you? And sitting with that.
Okay. And does typically someone know when they repel from black what it means for them?
A lot of the time they do. A lot of the time they say, I've never been asked to think in that way. And so when we give space to think in that way, there's usually stories and sensory experiences attached to it that we can process.
So how much do you feel that the process of the art therapy versus that analysing after going through the process is where you see the biggest uplift and change in someone?
I think both are equally important.
Right.
So to have the process is really important for the reflection, and to be able to reflect on that process it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
If we can't reflect on the process, that doesn't mean that meaningful things are not happening, because reflection does require some kind of reciprocal communication. If that person that's participating in art therapy doesn't want to share for whatever reason, that's the beauty of art therapy. They can be with those feelings, emotions, experiences without the pressure of having to talk about it or express it, but we would still in some way reflect on that. That's pretty important to understand what's happening here and why.
That's amazing.
What sort of, what sort of participants are you typically servicing, and then what are the outcomes that you're seeing? And I know that's going to vary greatly, but what does that, like the ideal participant to go through art therapy, and then what does that look like on the other end?
So I can work with people of all ages, and I do work with people of all ages. My youngest participant right now being 6, my oldest participant being on the later end, so in 60s. I can work with people all the way up to 80. I have done work before. Art therapy is for people who don't find the traditional forms of therapy to be helpful, achievable, accessible. So the traditional therapies that your GP will refer you to is usually psychology and psychologists. And what that requires from someone is to be in the front part of their brain. So the front part of your brain is responsible for making sense of information, pattern recognition, learning, integration, all of those things. For people who have psychosocial disability, meaning they have a mental health condition that is impacting their ability to engage with the world, we need to think about a different way of exploring and expressing. So psychology looks at the top of your brain and using the top of your brain. Psychotherapy acknowledges that we learn from the bottom up. So when we're babies, imagine that your brain is like a layered cake. Your brain grows from the bottom and builds to the top. And we have to meet developmental milestones to kind of be a functioning being. So where the disruption is in the brain, which can happen early on, we've got to start there. So from a sensory point of view. So where we're seeing people struggle to verbally communicate, take on learning in traditional ways, they're great candidates for art therapy. Anyone who uses creative expression already as a form of self-soothing or self-expression, they're your clients. I personally work primarily with people who have autism or autistic, people who are living with schizophrenia or psychosis illnesses. So things that are, deeply impacting their ability to engage in society in ways, that are traditional.
Okay, so when we go back to the reflection and unpacking what happened through the process, how much of that then goes back and defaults to traditional kinds of like psychology or counseling?
Yeah, so the reflection aspect is, it can tap into the traditional aspects of psychology. It's a staged approach. Art therapy starts off in the sensory, starts off in the movement aspect and builds up. So it hopefully opens up those parts of the brain once we've built safety and connection, builds up the parts of the brain, opens up the parts of the brain that allow you to communicate in more traditional ways in therapy. Is that the goal all of the time? No. So when we're talking about outcomes, there are some people who, because of their psychosocial disability, will not be able to communicate in traditional ways. And so art therapy in and of itself provides them creative tools, different ways of expressing self through body language, through movement, through art, through music, through poetry. So in that sense, psychology has these clear kind of frameworks and milestones to meet, whereas art therapy is about adapting to the individual.
Do you know what I find wild about this? Is that having heard that and unpacking that, you can absolutely see the value of art therapy, right? Now, if we're to go out to the general public that don't understand this space, they're going to think, why are my tax dollars going to people with disabilities doing art therapy instead of going to counseling or psychology? However, that same person would think that someone with a disability, because they have a very group idea of what someone with a disability is, and typically it's someone with a significant intellectual disability is how people view people with disability, they would be thinking they should go to a day program and glue pieces of macaroni to a piece of paper, right? That's what people they'd be okay with that because, they're being supported, like it's glorified babysitting. But then they'll turn around and go, why are my tax dollars being wasted on art being the way to do therapy, right? But then when we unpack that, all of us in this room know that it's the most degrading thing to get someone to glue some macaroni pieces of paper, like to someone that has no art background, no trauma-informed care background or anything. Literally just me, if I was a sport worker, like, come on, brother, let's do some art. Like, it's not going to achieve anything, right? And it's degrading. But then when we look at it from like an actual clinical lens and apply that creative lens as well, we can see that you can get outcomes. And it's just how backwards is it that anyone that in the general public that doesn't have that understanding of the industry would see one as go, how does that work? But then be okay with the other that all of us listening that are within the industry know is actually the opposite. Crazy, hey?
So what would you say then, like, to that point, What do you think? What's your opinion there?
I would say it is one of the most challenging aspects of being an art therapist. You know, when I was working in community services, oh, you're going to do some cute arts and crafts? All right. I mean, arts and crafts can be cute and lovely and wonderful. But what I do is trauma-informed psychotherapy. It's very serious what we're working on. And it's not a space where you would be sitting down and going, how cute, I love what you've done, take a photo. It's very personal. People are putting they're making sense of their world through their sensory experience and putting it on a piece of paper. It's as sacred as a journal, for example. It's as sacred as someone talking and someone grabbing the microphone off them, but you wouldn't do that. You'd give someone space to express and say, this is how I'm understanding and receiving the world, and we use that information to create an environment that feels healthy and lovely and reparative. And I think that people can understand art on a surface level. Most people are engaging in creative expression every day. On the way here, you're listening to the radio. You're dressing in beautiful dopamine-inducing ways with color. We do our makeup, we do our nails, we wear tattoos. We're all engaging in art, and we can see that in our day-to-day life. Yeah. But we can't, I guess we don't talk enough about the healing aspects of using art and creativity. And
Totally.
Indigenous and Aboriginal peoples have been using this for millennia and have been embodying that for millennia. We seem to kind of ignore that.
I want to give a couple of mainstream experiences too, because I think it really does translate. And, I was kind of the opinion, before I was like, I'm just going to sit down and draw a picture, do for me, right? But I lean into a lot of other woo-woo stuff like RTT and breath work and all that kind of stuff. But when I've got 3 examples that I can share. So when recently we did a give back event in this office where we painted lampshades for people with DV. So basically we paint the lampshades and then we give it to somebody escaping DV for their new home, right? And it was funny. I'll actually show you when we leave this room, all the different expressions through artwork. And also we took that break in our work day and we came in and we did the painting together, and we all set up and we had the paints out everywhere. And we all went back to work with a much more creative mindset and shift than what we had with the original day. Was that stop, that shift, the change of perspective. So that was one example I can use. Second one was when I was at a retreat in Byron, and it was probably the most spiritual type of retreat I've ever been to. It was my first night. It was like around a campfire with a drum, like enchanting Indian hymns or something like that. It was pretty next level. But the follow, we weren't allowed any tech, so there was no phones, no alcohol, no nothing. So where we had downtime in the day, you could either obviously lay by the pool or you could do other bits and pieces, but they had colouring and pen and books. And one of the sort of practitioners there said, oh, why don't you go and colour in? And I kind of snickered inside. I was like, colouring, And I said to the one girl that I had made friends with there, I said, oh, I'm going to try it out then. And we went and we sat and we coloured in. And again, how different our expressions were when it came to colouring in. And then how actually, how calming that practice was to colour, to sit and we see the colour. And then I actually realised that whilst we were colouring, and we were in a small group of, say, 4 people at the time, we then started sharing really deep stuff. So that was another experience just through colouring in. It's like we felt this sense of calm, and then we were able to share as well. And the final one was when I was at a personal development conference recently where we went and did like a scaling up event, and she'd asked us to do our 3-year business plan, but we couldn't write it. We had to draw it. Yeah. And so I was like, I missed the memo when I was outside on the phone, so I came back and I started writing. And she goes, Rach, I gave you one instruction, that was to not write a word. So I started drawing it. And I brought the pictures back and I said to my executive assistant, I was like, what about she made me draw this business plan? And she's like, and then I said, first, can I try interpreting it? And she literally could interpret it through my drawings and what the business plan was through pictures. So I think that there's I've sort of had to fall on my sword and say there's actually a lot of a lot of depth in creativity that I never gave it credit for.
And on that point, what you were tapping into is what research is now showing, that 20 minutes of creative expression a day reduces your cortisol levels significantly. So they've been able to test the cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone in your body and a cause of inflammation. So if we're sitting in high stress for long periods of time, we're going to see inflammation, and that feeds into autoimmune disease, physical disability, mental health. We have directly been able to see a relationship with art making and the reduction of cortisol. So after 20 minutes of colouring in, that's what's going on in your brain. That's telling your body you're safe. You know, the inflammation lowers. So from a neuroscience and biological perspective, there's a lot more research coming out. And that's why I brought this book. Your Brain on Art. It tells you all of the neuroscience behind what's happening when we're doing art. And one of my favorite quotes by one of the biggest researchers in trauma, Bessel van der Kolk, is I'm going to butcher it, but it's essentially, if you can't imagine it, how is it possible?
Oh.
So when you had that person inviting you to draw what you want for your business, they're getting you to visualize your future, because if you can't visualize it, how can it be possible? And so I work with that a lot in NDIS as well, because NDIS is about building a meaningful life and a meaningful way of engaging with your community. And one of my first questions is, well, how do you envision that?
Yeah.
And
well, that's when we do, so when we work with providers at a consulting level, work one-on-one with them, the first thing that we do is we use a person-centered path that we've adapted, and we call it a provider growth path. And then basically, for anyone that's not familiar with person-centered paths, they're an arrow-like drawing. Here's where we want to be in 12 months. Here's where we are now. What's the support we need, the accountability, what are the first steps? A person-centered path. Look them up if you haven't seen them. But essentially, we follow the exact same steps with providers. And it's for a myriad of reasons, one of which being we're trying to get it out in a somewhat creative way. And then when you work with different personality types that are very analytical and things like that, like, what am I doing this shit for? You know, because the first thing that we do is we start with the dreams. What are your dreams for the world, right? And it's the same thing when we go with vision, mission, values. But what do I, this isn't actually conducive to the outcome that we want. However, what it's about is it's getting that big picture, unmeasurable, subjective kind of thing and working out what it is. And then our job is to put that into objective, actionable steps and metrics for you, right? Mm-hmm. So it's crazy. We sit there for 4 hours and we just draw and write all over this piece of paper. And then 2-3 weeks later, you get a 50-page breakdown of your business, of where the gaps are, where you need to, what are the challenges, everything. And people look at it and go, well, this was stick figures on a piece of paper. How have you got a 50-page document out? And it's just the process, really, much like we're saying with this, of working out where do we want to go, how do we want to change the world. Because for a lot of providers out there, what they're doing is, especially if they're new to the space, is they come in and they go, I want to help everyone. And their vision and mission statement's probably very like ChatGPT or whatever, where they go, we want to support people with disabilities to live a good life. Like, fuck, don't 200,000 other providers? Doesn't the rest of the world want to see that? Like, it's not a very, good vision mission statement when you bring it back to, like, what do you do? Like, if we look at you, Rachel, it's like, I want to provide people true independence with their living, which is why you pioneered the concierge model so long ago, right? Is that living in a group setting isn't truly living independently, right? Whereas people have an entire unit to themselves, they've still got the 24/7 support, this whole model that you've created, because it came back to what your deep down in the core of your brain, your belief is that everyone has the right to live individually and still be supported, right? And for most people, the concept of that was group programs, right? Whereas when you go, hang on, we can do it differently. Like, when you work out why and what the outcome is, and then reverse engineer it down, that's where we end up with things that have, changed the face of this industry, like the concierge model, like art therapy being done at an effective level, you know what I mean? Because you go, what's the outcome that we want, and how do we use that as a medium to do it?
And we already know there's a lot of psychology when it comes to colours, right? Like, I know because I've done so much of this branding stuff and marketing, everybody drills in that, like, blue equals trust and, like, all that kind of stuff, So psychologically,
there has to be some correlation with the way that we see colours, right? And so I imagine that, not in the same concept, but I imagine you're far more skilled in understanding, like, sort of when, like, if I was to envision something dark in my world, I would probably lean towards dark colours, grey, gloomy, like that's what I would see. Then I'm thinking, like, you know, a beautiful time with my friends and families and we're frolicking around a garden with the sun. You know what I mean? Like, I'm typically, like, you can see that, how that's work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the outcomes that I want to see in people when they are engaging in a creative therapy is the growth in authenticity and their ability to be themselves and to be accepted and to be loved and valued and to feel like they belong to something bigger than just their little world. That has so many healing properties, and a part of learning who that is understanding the sensory experience. So let's get creative about that. Let's get radical about your life. Let's think outside the box about how you can achieve becoming an astronaut that's going to go to Mars. Like, that's achievable. Well, let's see what's achievable. Let's move beyond your perceived limitations, because art and creativity and creative expression is space for that. So that's the outcomes that I'm hoping to see, people getting creative about meaningfully living into their life.
I also still think colour can be subjective, right? Because I've got a good anecdote for you. I love a good story. So remember when cigarettes in Australia went to plain packaging? At the same time, Coca-Cola came out with a new flavour that was like Coke Life, and it was meant to feel a little bit more like organic and healthy, and but still tasteful and things like that, right? Anyway, so the government, when they did plain packaging, they wanted the packets to be the least appealing they could be. So they put the yuck photos on the front, and then the colour they came out with was the colour that we know plain packet cigarettes to be, because it's the least appealing colour. Now, Coca-Cola spent hundreds of millions of dollars on going through group studies and stuff to find the most appealing colour for their new product. And it's crazy because Coca-Cola found the most appealing colour was the same colour that the government found was the least appealing colour to make the plain packet cigarettes. So how did we go through so many case focus groups and things like that and go, hey, I want to buy that colour Coca-Cola bottle, to, hey, I do not want to buy that colour cigarette packet? Is it, I don't know. Do you have an answer?
Yeah.
I agree that the way that we respond to sensory experience is so rooted in our personal discourse and lens, where you come from, your cultural background, where you're living, your socioeconomic status. And I know that companies use that data and information to their advantage, and it's very targeted. So that's my thoughts on that. I feel like that information can be used for good, and that information can be used for other things like making money. And that, okay, cool, that's creative, I guess. But as long as we're mindful, and cognizant of where our decision making is coming from, am I buying this thing because it's a genuine need, or am I feeling manipulated by marketing?
Yeah, so true. The only other thing I'll add to that is that whilst I think black and dark and grey when it comes to like trauma, I also think of grey and blacks as, you know, slimming clothing. You know, like
Erasure.
yes,
That's
yes,
right. Yeah.
and like neckline
you hate the colour's negative, but then it's positive.
Yes.
The same thing. Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah. So you know, even like like the way that you would perceive. Now, I was blonde once, platinum blonde.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so like I remember now when I look back at photos of me as a platinum blonde, and I lost. My hair just started falling out after kids. I mean, they zap you with everything. But anyway, that's for another day. And so now I look back at myself and I go, God, I look like such a tart.
Ooh.
Like, you know, like
A tart.
not like a pecan tart, like a what's a better word than legally blonde. How would you explain that?
I know what you're trying to say, but
I
I'm
know.
trying. You can't get it out.
Judgment.
What's a tart, Rachel?
There's judgments arising from
Yes.
you based on the
Yes.
associations you now make with bleach blonde hair.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is what, Rachel?
I'm trying to think of the word. Like ditzy, like
Okay.
That's not the word you were going to say. I was trying to get it.
I know. What would I have said?
Hey, don't put this back on me.
Well, I get it. Being a tattooed therapist, how people, people have actually said to me, you're my therapist? Like, you're covered in tattoos. There's preconceived ideas and notions about what a tattooed person is. Can't
Correct.
possibly be someone that can help me with my mental health. And there's this power dynamic then that I'm now aware of about what people believe a therapist or a psychotherapist or psychologist is to be. And I'm challenging that a little bit, a lot, by being a tattooed, used to have blue hair exactly this color, person. Can we add value, or is value removed in the way that we present ourselves? It's a whole other podcast, I think.
Wow. Okay, I want to wrap up with one last question.
Okay.
All right, why did you get into art therapy? And why just people with disabilities? What's your why?
My why is because from a really young age, I have felt that creativity brings connection, connection brings healing.
Nice.
And I have fumbled my way into this. I started off as a tattoo artist, and then an artist and a mural artist. And then through the connections that I made with people, I learned, okay, there's something in this. And I have personal lived experience of being a carer and people with disabilities in my family. So it is personal to me why I've chosen to contribute to my community in this way.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do.
Well, thank you for having me.
Amazing.
You got
cool.
one question
Yeah.
then.
Okay. So for anyone, I guess, listening that thinks, so the NDIS is funding people with disabilities to use arts as therapy. What do you have to say to all those people that don't have that experience within the industry? Like, how would you explain the benefits of them in 30 seconds to change their mind on why this is such a powerful tool?
I would say please don't underestimate the value in giving people, especially people with disabilities, a space to be their authentic self, to have agency, choice and control, and to build beautiful pictures and to build strategies, meaningful, accessible, achievable strategies to live the life that they want to live. And art therapy and all of the research behind it is proving more and more how valuable from a neurological, biological, psychological and social aspect, why it's so valuable to have as a part of the NDIS. So give it a go. Give it a go.
Give it a
Open your
go.
mind.
Heard it here first.
Amazing. Cool. What are your takeaways,
All
Rach?
right, my takeaways are, and I've got 4, that we can experience expressions and therapy through other methods other than verbal. And I think that that's one really nice one. My next one is, we are judgmental little fuckers when it comes to colour. Well, I certainly am. I loved this one, that 20 minutes of creative, doing something creative every day will reduce your cortisol levels. And there's studies to show that. I think that that's something that we can all embody. And I think that could be through dance or, like you said, poetry or journaling or yoga or activity or anything like that, right?
Exactly.
I'm assuming. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And I can't quite remember the quote, but if you can't see it, how can it happen, or something similar?
If you can't imagine it, how could it be possible?
Yeah, that's it. Love that.
Amazing.
Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Thank you so much for jumping
Thanks for
on.
having me.
We'll put some links in the bio if you are around Sydney and you want to get in touch with Jess and her team. Go connect with her and find out a bit more about her story. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.